Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. In this week's tutorial, we are going to create a mono-weight brush using a pre-existing default brush in Procreate. We're doing iPad lettering here. And then we'll use that mono-weight brush to improve our lettering super fast using a technique that I call the skeleton technique. So I'm going to walk you through how to use that technique, how to improve your lettering super fast, and also how to create this mono-weight brush that you can use from now until the future. So just to bring you into the settings, what we're going to do is go into our brushes. So hit your inking category up at the top of your brushes and then navigate to Studio Pen, which should be close to the top. It's in my upper right hand corner. And what you're going to do is just slide it to the left and then you're going to choose Duplicate. So after you duplicate it, then you're going to change the name of it. I've changed mine to read Studio Pen Mono Weight. So now I'm going to take you through the comparison of the default Studio Pen and then the changes that we're going to make it a mono weight brush. So right here you can see on the left side is the existing default Studio Pen and on the right side is the adjustments that we're making for our brand new Studio Pen that's mono weight. You can see that I've slightly adjusted the streamline settings here. It's really a matter of preference with streamline, with how smooth your writing appears as you use your brush. So that's totally to your discretion, however you prefer your streamline settings. But the main settings are all highlighted in pink. They're kind of non-negotiable if you want to keep it as a mono weight brush. So as you can see, the stroke taper, I've changed everything to read none. So toggle those little switches all the way to the left so everything reads none. Now down at the bottom, you can see it's the stroke category of the settings. For the shape and grain category, you don't need to change anything. So you don't even really need to touch those because nothing is going to change between the two. So we're going to move right along to the dynamics category. The only thing that we're changing right here is the flow. So just max it out, drag it all the way to the max to the right. And then we're going to move into our pencil settings. So as you can see, I've highlighted again right here. You're going to change the size. You're going to reduce it down to 0. So when you apply pressure to the brush, it's not going to change the size at all. And it's not going to change the opacity. This is one of the biggest settings right here to make sure that it stays a mono weight brush, meaning that it stays one consistent weight regardless of pressure throughout. And then you can see under tilt, everything still stays the same. So heading into the general category right here, everything is the same except for size limits. You're going to change your max size limit all the way to the max and your min size limit all the way to none. So the size will not change no matter what happens. And then under opacity, we don't want any opacity changes to occur, meaning the transparency of your brush as you use it. You can adjust opacity settings based on the pressure of your brush, but here we don't want any changes with our transparency. So you're going to max out the max and the min limit here. Now the source is going to be exactly the same. So from here, you officially have a mono weight brush. So now you can use this from now until the future. And my favorite use for this is utilizing the skeleton technique with that. So we're going to get into how to use the skeleton technique with this mono weight brush next. Now that you have your mono weight brush all created, we're going to utilize what I like to call the skeleton technique. And the skeleton technique is essentially all of our letters are made up of one single path. And then we apply kind of the meat to the bones of that path where we have our thick strokes and our thin strokes and all the decoration that comes with it. But everything begins with a structure, with a single path or a single line throughout all of your lettering. So that's what we're going to use our mono weight brush for, and then we're going to introduce the pressure settings afterwards just to kind of make everything more simplified, more straightforward, and a lot easier to achieve really great results fast. So we're just going to select our mono weight brush that we just created. You're going to make sure you're on a brand new layer, and I've got black selected right here for my color. If you want true black, all you have to do is double tap down here and it will automatically select that true black. So now you're just going to write out whatever word that you want to use, and you want to make an effort to make those letters as beautiful as possible, but don't be concerned at all about the pressure settings, your heavy downstrokes or your light upstrokes. The point of this is to just make beautiful letters, and then we'll worry about those pressure settings afterwards. So I'm just going to write out the word Tuesday. Okay, so once we have our lettering, if you want to move it around at all, I feel like mine's a little too much to the left, so I can just hit my little cursor icon right here and just drag it closer to the center. So that looks good. And now what we're going to do is just reduce the opacity so we can use this as a guide for our more pressured lettering where we put on all the decoration. So what I'm going to do is hit the magic wand icon up here, choose opacity, and then just drag this blue line down. I like keeping mine down around 20%. That usually gives me enough of a base where I can still see what I'm drawing on top. So I've got this down to about 20%, and now I'm going to create a brand new layer above this layer. So just hit your plus right here, and now you're going to select whatever brush that you'd like to use for your final lettering. This is our base, our guide, our bones for our skeleton technique, and we're just going to grab the type of brush that we want to use for the rest of the lettering. So I recently purchased a lettering brush set from Ryan Hamrick. I'll leave a link in the video description to this set of brushes. I've really enjoyed working with them. So I'm just going to grab the felt tip brush pen right here from his set, and then I'm just going to go through the word, and wherever there's a downstroke, I'm going to put extra pressure. Wherever there's an upstroke, I'm going to put less pressure. That way I'm not concerned about forming my letters. I'm more concerned and more focused on my pressure throughout my word. I want to make sure that all my downstrokes are consistent with their thickness and all my upstrokes are consistent with their thinness. So that's what I'm focused on here, and it's nice because now that we've used our mono weight brush, we're using that as a guide. It really takes the pressure off of forming beautiful letters and all of those pressure settings all together at once. So I'm just going to come through this word, and let me adjust my brush just a little bit larger and come through heavy on the downstroke, light on the upstroke, and come all the way through my word. And remember, with an iPad, it's really easy to go back and forth. If you don't like the last stroke that you did, you can hit with 2 fingers and go back. Or if you want to step forward again, just hit with 3 fingers and that'll move you forward. So once you have all of your lettering traced over with your pressure settings, now you can just turn off your base lettering so you can see what your final lettering looks like, because we've got them on different layers. So I can just uncheck the bottom layer, and now we've got our final lettering just like that. And it was a lot easier to achieve because we already had focus on the letter formation, then focus on the pressure. So you can experiment with different colors, different brushes, and just make sure you always use a different layer. That way you keep it separate and you're never permanently applying your final lettering to your base guide layer. That's really important. So that's one way to utilize this technique. Another way is if you want to introduce textures to your lettering. Say I wanted this technique, I wanted to utilize the same technique, but I wanted to use it with watercolor textures or metallic textures, and I wasn't really sure how to do that. So I want to show you the best way to do that here. So I'm just going to delete this layer for now and turn my guide layer back on, and now we want to introduce a texture. So I'm just going to come over to my wrench, hit insert flat image, and I'm going to choose a watercolor texture that I have. This is part of my Procreate watercolor texture kit. I'm just going to grab this one right here. I'll leave a link in the video description for these as well. So I'm just going to increase the size of this so it takes up the entire artboard, come back to my layers palette. This needs to be below my guide lettering, that way I can see it. So I'm just going to hold down on this layer and then just drag it below my guide layer. Now you can see my guide layer is right on top. And now in order to make this work, I need a layer of white on top of this. So I'm just going to hit plus right here. I'm going to come to my colored circle right here and then double tap anywhere near the white, and that'll give you true white. Return to your layers, tap right here and choose fill. And now if I turn off my white layer, you can see my watercolor is right underneath it, so I'm good to go. So the point of this is we're going to erase away the white to reveal our watercolor. And any brush that you have also works as an eraser. So just hit your eraser. I'm going to return to that lettering set. I'm going to choose felt tip brush pen. Make sure my settings are similar over here. And then I'm just going to erase away, just keeping in mind the pressure settings once more. We're using this as a guide just like we did before. So I'm going to go through the exact same process once more right here. Only I'm erasing away the white this time. This is subtractive versus additive, where we were actually adding color to the document. We're removing the white this time. Okay, so if we want to preview what our lettering looks like, just return to your layers and turn off your guide layer, which is right on top, and now you can see what it looks like with your watercolor peeking through. And if you want to see what other textures look like, all you have to do is tap on your watercolor image, come back to your wrench, hit insert flat image, and then choose a new texture. I'm going to grab one from my metallic Procreate kit, this foil texture right here, just enlarge it so it takes up your full artboard once again. And now you can just return to your layers, and you can see because the metallic is above the watercolor, that's what's going to peek through the white right here. If I uncheck or turn off my metallic layer, you can see the watercolor right here. So you can have a bunch of different textures built up right here, so you can kind of experiment and see which texture looks best with whatever word that you're using. So that is how to utilize a mono-weight brush with the skeleton technique to improve your lettering fast, because we're paring it down to 2 simple steps. One is focusing purely on the formation of your letters, and then the other one is focusing on your pressure settings. And with the Apple Pencil, it makes it really easy to play around with those pressure settings, different colors, different textures, all of that. So that is the skeleton technique in Procreate. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe. I release a new design tutorial every single Tuesday, and don't forget to head on over to my blog, every-tuesday.com, for even more design tutorials and a bunch of design freebies. And once again, all the links to everything that was mentioned in this video, the textures and the lettering Procreate brushes, are all in that video description. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.